What's going on, Workforce? Brian here, and in this episode of Community Feedback, we're actually doing a collection of videos and different comments from a couple of videos that we've had over the last week or two, namely talking about microtransactions, talking about Final Fantasy XII, and talking about the concept of clickbait in Chris's latest video from yesterday. So I want to kind of take what you guys have been saying, kind of present that as a typical community feedback goes. But before we dive in, I do want to say, if anybody's watching this before June the 27th, and you can now get Heaven's Word for free. If you have the base starter edition of Final Fantasy XIV, they have made Heaven's Word available to you for free. So get in that action, especially if you've already pre-ordered Shadowbringers. It's a fantastic deal. It allows you to get a little bit closer and get ready for the launch or the early access launch on the 28th of June. So really awesome move by Square Enix, in my opinion, and I'm happy. Hopefully people get able to take advantage of this and dive in. But what we were talking about today, like I said, is a smorgasbord of videos that we talked about. We got a lot of different comments I want to go over and highlight and continue the discussion with you guys here today. If you're looking and you haven't been here for a while, or if you're coming back and you're like, whoa, what's going on with Brian's office, I'll be sure to include an update in a future video, maybe next week on that, but we're still getting set up. I think it looks pretty killer. Thanks to Chris and Claire for helping me get some of this stuff. We're still unpacking, so we got more to come in that way. But our first comment comes from Kai Lopez, writing on the microtransactions, good, bad, or ugly. So he says, my feelings on microtransactions are that they are awesome. Let fanboys pour a ton of money into developers, and if it makes them happy, so long as it's kept walled off from cosmetics only. If you're going to ride a horse reskin to be Yoshi and give the devs $5 and makes the game more profit, and makes it more content, I love it. Let the mount go faster. Nope, then I'm just going to quit the game. And thanks, Kai. I absolutely 100% agree. If there's no advantage that comes into it, and if people want to spend the money, I think go for it. One of the things that I think is interesting about that concept, though, is that when people look at, like, Battlefront 2 is a real classic example of overreach and how the community reacted. The market reacted to that because they overstepped. They went into that progression. Those who have more money can easily spend it and progress further, faster, especially with random rolls with loot boxes. That's actually a really good sign within the community that when overreach does happen, that we as a community can say, like, no, don't do that again. The side of it, though, is that when I look at it, it's that everything from a piece of paper, somebody who's not necessarily like in the community, in this case we'll say EA, everything on paper looks like this is what people want to buy. People are like, wow, we're making so much money, obviously let's keep doing what we're doing, and having no real context as to what kind of the general temperature was. And you see that kind of in that reaction. So it makes me happy for that as the market goes, that's where it comes from. Now, we both agree. I know a lot of people have differing opinions about microtransactions, and I think that I can respect where everybody is coming from. Honestly, at the end of the day, I think if it's ultimately going to benefit everybody, that's, I think, a positive. That's one of the things I really enjoyed about Halo 5 is I didn't spend any money at the end of it. But the money that was spent by people who were wanting to participate in that system funded pretty much the rest of the development. We'll have to see what happens with the next Halo. We'll have to see what happens with the next generation. This has felt like a very microtransaction-based generation. And honestly, I think that when it comes down to the single-player experience, I'm more in the camp of I'd rather see the game be $100 and complete as opposed to a starter edition at $60, and then they try to find other ways to monetize a small portion of the population. It's a weird world we live in right now. But thank you, Kai, so much for the comment. So our next series of comments comes from the fact that Final Fantasy XII is pretty much available on all platforms right now. So Matthias writes, I love anyone who picks Final Fantasy VI as their favorite in the series. Nexo writes, I love Final Fantasy XII and Tactics, and there is Final Fantasy XIV and the Alliance Raid Return to Ivalice. The final boss has a really good ending. And then finally, Aldrin says, I hated this game when I was a kid. It was too quote-unquote new for me, but then again, I do regret not playing it that much. I was hoping for it to come to the Switch, and I was happy that I found out it would. Watching gameplay videos and starting to feel burned out by turn-based combat, I'm actually appreciating the combat system, and only thing I hate about the game is the chests. Even the TZA version, missing items due to RNG just sucks. Sucks even more on Switch since you can't manipulate RNG for it. And thank you guys so much for those comments. I absolutely agree. I think one of the things that's kind of funny is that I have more access to Final Fantasy XII than I do with Final Fantasy VI, and the mobile port, whatever version, just wasn't right. It didn't sit right with me. I'm still holding out for maybe an Octopath Traveler remaster of 6, but 12 I think is incredible. That's what I think my gushing review was more about, just how amazing it is. And the fact is, like, on Xbox and on on Nintendo Switch, it's far actually been updated. You can change your jobs, which is like unique to the Xbox and the Switch version. I think it runs great handheld mode on dock. And then I know a lot of people were saying about like the portability factor where they go with Switch, but one of the cool things about the portability factor on Xbox is that all your game saves are in the cloud. So the game follows you from Xbox to Xbox, whether it's yours or somebody else's, and you log into your profile. So there's a real cool strength there. Yeah, same kind of concept obviously on PC Steam, but it's a little bit more automated on the Xbox as well. The Switch, obviously, if you want to play in handheld mode or if you want to dock it, it's really good to go. Now, Aldrin's, his comment or their comment was more like, yeah, like I know at the time people were just not really into it. I think that kind of due to the time in which it was released, obviously right on the next generation of PS3, Xbox 360, Final Fantasy XII came out. I think it was really ahead of its time. I think one of the cool things you see in 14 and other games, like the influence that it had, it's a single player, like MMO kind of experience in some ways. And the depth and the breadth and what they poured into this game, I think it definitely deserves another look. So if you were on the fence, if it wasn't something they were interested back in the day, if you were worried because it's not an action combat system, but it's not a turn-based combat system, even though you can actually kind of make it a turn-based combat system. It's a combat system I would personally love to see come back, gambits and all, in a future Final Fantasy. Voice cracks and I have a little hiccup. Anyway, it's really something worth a second chance look if you haven't already. And now you have more than enough options to dive into it. So hopefully you do, especially Aldrin. Hopefully you enjoy it this time around and really get the most out of your experience. Then we've got on the concept of clickbait. We got 4 comments here I want to highlight, especially the last one. So in this case, we got Rim Gaming says, I know I already posted my opinion on Twitter, but as you've stated that people aren't intrigued to click your thumbnail on your videos, then it won't get seen by very many. As long as the content delivers in the thumbnail and the title, then it isn't clickbait. If it's the opposite and doesn't deliver, and then the algorithm will shut it down as well. So I don't feel baited when I get what I came for. And then he says, great video, Chris. Good job, Chris. Jay Ghosto writes, sometimes the titles of the videos are pretty outlandish compared to what they are usually tame, logical, and usually optimistic content you guys share. Just stay true to you because you guys have a dynamic that is well balanced and interesting. Thank you, Jay Ghosto. I want to jump in on this real quick because that's actually one of the things that we've talked about as well. It's that the content, we don't want to change it. We don't want to be excited for the sake of just creating an excited video or angry for the sake of, we don't want to like manufacture our opinion, to fit some kind of theme. The thumbnails should capture, and what Chris talks about in that video specifically, wanting to grab and get people from all points. Like somebody was saying on one of our videos that we don't want to bring in a certain element, and we actually disagree. We'll want to bring in that element, especially sometimes we create a thumbnail in hopes to bring in that element so we can specifically talk to that element and kind of help balance it out. And where we know and where this is ultimately, I guess, justified or proven to us that what we're doing is actually the right call is when people say they came into the video angry because of something Square Enix did or something they read on Reddit. And then after, and they thought like whether, I don't know, they thought maybe they were going to become even angrier in our video or whatever, but then they watched the video and it helped them look at the whole perspective, look at the entire picture of it all. It's not that we can't be upset, not that we can't be hyped about things, but it's just about that consistently and that quality. And so the thumbnail and the title is that is that interview, and then it's the job of the video, it's the job of the conversation, the job of the discussion to look at all different sides of it and have that conversation with you guys, both in that video and then in a follow-up community feedback or while we're live streaming. That is essentially kind of how we view it. So I think when it comes down to the content, that is the key. And sometimes you see that when people come in for the thumbnail and title and they don't watch the video, where they might get that idea, because they were like, what, like, oh, how dare you make a thumbnail and title that is inviting and made me want to click on it, but I'm not going to watch. And it's like, you know what, I respect them too. It's like that's their choice. And we invite them like, hey, maybe check out the video, we'd love to know your thoughts. And that's all we can ultimately do in that case. So it's that, like, our content we don't feel has changed in that regards, but our thumbnails have definitely gotten, I think, way better. At the end of the day, like when somebody says, "Oh, this was just clickbait," I go like, well, like I ask myself, was it? Like, did I deliver on the video? And maybe I did or didn't, in the sense of like maybe I could have done a better job making a more clear point, or just communicated more effectively. And I look at that and try to improve on that. Or was it that, like, okay, did they actually engage in the video? And a couple times we've talked to people and it turns out they haven't, and then they watch the video and then they're like, okay, I get what you're going with now. So it's a weird line to walk, because we don't obviously want to intentionally make anything that is clickbait, but at the same time we want to try to draw in the most amount of people to be a part of the conversation. Because when we say we don't want an echo chamber, like it would be so easy to build an echo chamber. It would be absolutely, like, YouTube wants us to build an echo chamber. YouTube wants us to surround ourselves with people who think just like us, and all we do is, I agree, yes, I agree. And it's like, that's not what we want, because I honestly have always believed that the best answers and the best things comes from disagreement, and not in the sense of like, angry, but just in like seeking understanding. I think that's ultimately my goal, is to understand where people are coming from, so I could either, formulate my thoughts better, or if I can understand a point that, and a perspective that isn't my own, that's a good thing, because then we can have better conversations, then we can have and provide better feedback, and ultimately, to the devs who are building these games that we love so much, be able to provide them, I guess, a well-balanced approach to the whole thing, and I guess that's part of the goal here. But anyway, let's dive in. Sin606 says, I'm pretty sure clickbait is when you show one thing and present another. Title: Why Blake Mage is the worst DPS. Contents of you expertise and many other jobs, but failing to understand Black Mage. And I think that's ultimately where what I've always talked about is, I've talked about the deceptiveness of it. It's that if I want to sit here and say, hey, why puppies are amazing, and then I'm just going to talk about cats, and then maybe the end will be like, and puppies are cool too. Like that is exactly what clickbait is, in my opinion. If like I'm actively trying to play on something and then not talk about it whatsoever, not even hint at it. And sometimes you see some people like, oh, at the end I'm gonna like, oh, see, it's like, no. That's why, especially like on some of those titles and some of those thumbnails, we try to front load the point. We try to get to the point as quickly as possible. That way, for people who might be new and might not know what it is to be a part of the workforce and what a discussion video is and what we try to accomplish here, we want to make sure we get to that as quickly as possible, and then expand on the thoughts as well. And also some of the times, and we'll talk about this with Irish Mage's comment here in a second, some of the times it's where we actually present an opinion that is not our own, an opinion that somebody has expressed in the community to discuss it, and people, they're like, oh yeah, like, how could you make this video? Why would anybody want to talk about this? Is that, or why, this video shouldn't exist because we want to have this, view of the game, like if we want to talk about ERP, instead of like brushing it under the rug and refusing to talk about it. No, we should discuss it. We should have that conversation about it and try to, work within that, the bounds of, with respect and understanding being kind of two almost key virtues as a part of the whole thing itself. But anyway, I'm going to jump into Irish Mage's comment here. He says, I sort of disagree when you say we can't ask a question and then answer it. Like if I say, does ARR need a remake? We can't answer it no. There have been videos where you've asked questions and sort of answered it. The token system in Final Fantasy really stands out as something you've asked, then answered, or at least tried swaying in a direction leaning towards your own opinion. And don't get me wrong either, you're completely entitled to your own opinion, and this is your platform to give it. But on that note, I saw a love button used in the comments for those that agreed with you and friendly arguments for those who disagreed. So whether you realize it or not, I think people accuse you of clickbaiting because this channel tends to lean towards the opinion of the video maker, and that's fine, while saying it's a discussion. If you like to say you guys do this for discussion and then in the comment section, maybe leave your own personal opinion out and then just ask. Then if you'd like to state your own opinion, do a separate video on the topic, but leave it as let's discuss stuff up to the viewer with no sway. But it's your channel to ultimately like. Okay, let's lots to break down here in this case. So do we only then heart comments that agree with us? No, actually I highlight and even pin comments that are well worded. So if somebody comes in just like guns blazing, F-bomb this, F-bomb that, like I'm gonna find somebody whose comment actually has, it doesn't have to agree with me, but it at least has a point, a thought that has, interesting ways of expressing it. So people come in like that and they're like, well, my comment didn't get highlighted, but this guy who maybe didn't, drop 1,000 F-bombs and, and then express why we're wrong, like I'll highlight that, I'll pin that. I think it's important. This isn't about my opinion. Now, do I express my opinion in a Let's Discuss? Yes. Do I express other people's opinions in Let's Discusses? Absolutely. In fact, sometimes people are like accusing me of doing something when I'm actually like stated like, hey, this was what was being said in Reddit, and here's the opinion, and like, what do you guys think about it? As and then people are like, why do you think that? I'm like, I don't actually. I thought it was interesting. So we've actually done a bit of both there, but there is such a huge backlog, so it's might not easily be recognized right away as what it is. So I just kind of want to touch on those 2 points. There have been videos where we ask the question and answer it. So what we're referring to, or Chris is referring to, is in the title and then in the thumbnail. So the thumbnail and title will ask the question, and the video will answer the the question itself. And so when Chris says, like he said, does ARR need a remake? His answer was, and my answer actually is I said, don't bother remaking it unless you plan on remaking it. Don't just bring in one little thing and call it done, like flying. Don't just drop flying in there. Like, think of a way to make it unique. Think of adding flying so that you can get to a new part of that zone that you could never reach. That's a remake of the zone. It's like, okay, we've added stuff to it. Like don't half-ass it. Do a full job, and that's essentially what his video comes to the conclusion of. And that's what I agree with. I was like, yeah, like I would rather see like either don't do it or really do it. Like figure out what it would look like to kind of reimagine those zones. Reimagine like Ulda, Gridania, like where they're not separated by these zone lines, old and new and things like that. I think that would be ultimately fascinating, and personally that's what I'd like to see. But if they don't do it, it makes sense as well. Anyway, so so the opinion of the video maker, we talked about that and how that can and cannot be. But as the other side of it is that we have the community feedback and we have the live streams, and we actually engage in the comments. I think that's really important as a part of that. It should be well-rounded and it should be inclusive. And I know there are people who don't like discussion videos and channels, but that's ultimately like we're an RPG discussion channel. We love RPGs and we love talking about video games, and I love learning other people's perspectives, and I like to highlight that. Now it's all it's all under the virtue of respect in that sense. So where like somebody who's respectful in the comments, that's someone who's I'm going to pick. I think this comment by Irish Mage is very respectful. Like they are putting out their opinion, they are expressing it, and they're bringing up a couple of different points, and like then we're discussing it. So ultimately, hopefully this helps flesh that understanding out, what it means to be a part of the workforce. And the other side of this as well is that one of the things when we talk about curating the comments is that like people in the workforce sometimes will come and try to defend us, and it's like, honestly, like everybody is going to be coming to this channel at a different point in life and a different perspective, And sometimes they come in, guns blazing, and I get it. Like sometimes that maybe that's how they feel like they, how they might get attention or get some kind of response. And we always try to, welcome them. And so if you guys see that, don't go guns blazing back. Welcome them, welcome to the workforce, because it's that, we're not going to always agree, and that's okay. And it's actually like it adds, I think it makes a better community. When we temper it with the respect, like I'm not going to force my opinion on you. You don't need to agree with me to be a part of this like community. I want to know what you think. And that's like legit the best thing I think in the world. One of the greatest things I think is just the great conversations and the amount of interesting thought and debate that's all coming from people with different game libraries, with different walks of life. It's truly a sight to behold, and I'm just thrilled and honored to be a part of it. And I don't look at it as really my channel, and I don't look at this as like me being a creator and you being a fan. No, like I look at this as us being a community, and I'm just a guy, on one end of the camera. And that's why we try to have those live streams, and we try to do all these different things to make it special and to make it, like where we're talking. And that's where we have it where people can just come into our live streams and just openly talk to us and share their opinion. And I think it's one of the things I really enjoy about this. And sometimes even on the archives, people get frustrated. They're like, oh, you bring on these people. And it's like, no. Like anybody is usually welcome. Like as long as you have a good mic and you're not going to just blast us with F-bombs, come hang out, chat with us. We'd love to hear from you. Anyway, hopefully I've addressed all that. Hopefully I didn't miss any points from Irish or the other comments. Thank you guys so much for your comments. Thank you for so much for being part of the workforce. Hope you guys have an amazing weekend, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Hey guys, it's me, Brian. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you're new here, we hope you hit that subscribe button. Check us out. We talk a lot about video games, and we hope to at least hear from you in the comments below. We also try to respond to our comments. We really appreciate the comments, the discussion, all the various points of view that everybody is so kindly, I guess, and politely or impolitely shares with us from time to time. So anyway, guys, again, thanks for watching this video. We hope you hit that like button. We hope you hit that subscribe button. Come back for more content each and every day. We post a lot around here, and we'd love to hear from you about what you like about video games and everything, and especially if you have any questions that you're stuck on in anything. So anyway, signing off. See you next time.